Okay, wildcard weekend playoff picture is cemented and set. I can't wait. We have so much fallout from yesterday. Let's welcome NFL analyst for ESPN, Ben Solak, who's already busy. Like, you put out a pod this morning. Do you sleep? Do you sleep ever?
Not on week 18, right? I was like 3 coffees and a green tea deep by the end of the day. It's last regular season. You just got to get the ball over the line at that point.
I was sad in the morning that it was over, and then there were such good games. I would say, like, the second half weren't great. The Sunday nighter was great, but the first slate was incredible. I had trouble sleeping as well. But before we get to the fallout from that, you know, it's the day after week 18. We know what this is all about. Head coaching positions and rumors and jockeying. Big news out of New York. The Giants announced that Shane and Daboll are back next season. A lot of people thought that they might be moved, the whole Saquon thing. What do you think of that move by Mara after a 3-14 season?
All right, keep him if you want. Like, that's fine if you want to give him another year. All right. The messaging is, I'm almost out of patience, and apparently, according to Mike Garafolo, there's a win mandate, right? X number of wins, a playoff berth, which is just you are just setting the team up for failure, right? And if you don't like the crop of coaching options this year, I kind of get that. I think it's a pretty thin head coaching class. There's some guys that you like, but in general, it's not as strong as years past. And so, if you want to wait a year, right, keep on the burner and then go in 25, sure, that's fine. But the way that this is being communicated, like, you know, I'll keep them, but I'm not happy about it, and we better make the playoffs. It feels to me like you're establishing a lame duck season. And so I don't super love the move. I certainly don't love the way it's being presented. Okay,
the Patriots, let's move on there. Let's stay on the East Coast here. Gerard Mayo, I first to say I'm shocked. Like, I did not think I had Devin McCourty on last week. I was seeing the rumors. I was like, I don't even want to talk about this. I don't think it's a thing. Like, they know that this is a rebuild. He was handed a really tough situation. They part ways for whatever reason. I like Kraft. I think it's a pretty nice place to come in and be a coach. They've got a great quarterback in Drake May. At least they've got that figured out. You've said on your pod that this is a great situation for a candidate. Yeah. Who's the most attractive candidate?
Ben Johnson by a mile. This is the way that this goes really well for the Patriots, and honestly really well for Ben, is if all the Bears conversation, the Jaguars conversation, this, that, and the other thing, if it ends up with just Drake May and $130 million in cap space going to a guy like Ben Johnson, it's a perfect ideal marriage. Drake May did not have nearly the statistical season that Jaden Daniels did, nor that Bo Nix did with the Broncos. But on film, man, Drake is as impressive as those guys in terms of what he's capable of doing. And he did behind such a porous offensive line with such a weird carousel of pass catchers. Like, if you introduce a sharp head coach in Ben Johnson, both in terms of offensive designing, but then also in game management, some of the fourth down stuff, and you find a lot more competitive edges on Sundays within the game. As long as Elliot Wolf does his job in the offseason, the Patriots can take a big year 2 leap if it's Ben Johnson and Drake May. So absolutely, if I were Ben Johnson, first interview I want to take is the Patriots.
Wow. Do you think any of these candidates look at being a one-and-done coach and they're unattracted to that? I certainly would.
So I think yes and no.
Because it's an anomaly. The Crafts don't do it, but they also had Belichick for forever.
Yeah. I'll put it to you this way. It's very rare to see consecutive one-and-done coaches, right? And so, all right, they just went one-and-done on Gerard Mayo. If I walk out there, my first season's, not too great, and we're losing games, and we're banged up, and maybe we go 2-2 in the final month, and we end 5-12, I don't think the Crafts want to go one-and-done again, do a head coaching search for a third offseason in a row. And so, honestly, it does worry you to see the quick trigger, but also for your opportunity, right, for your chances, you probably think, you're right, I have at least 2 years here to build this thing out. So it goes both ways.
Patriots requested to interview Ben Johnson this morning.
Good.
What's the least desirable coaching sitch in the league?
It's always tough to say this.
Go on.
From the outside, because you don't know exactly what ownership is and isn't saying and how involved they are, so on and so forth. I wouldn't want the Jets job, just because I think the way that you've seen that reported over the last few months and the fallout of the Aaron Rodgers decision, where it just seems like ownership doesn't necessarily know exactly the steps to take to build a good contender. And there's, I think, a lot of impatience there. And then there's a lot of absentee ownership there. And you've got to get a new front office, and you got to get a new quarterback, and you don't have a great cap situation. I think the Jets job is a long-term rebuild. And I think when you look at the names that they're bringing, talking about Rex Ryan, talking about Mike Vrabel, they're bringing in established head coaching guys because they need someone who can steady the ship for 2 years without necessarily winning games. All right, we already know these guys can be this sort of head coach. We just need to kind of get through this transition period.
You're Ben, and you, for whatever reason, you don't get the job. Or Aaron Glenn, let's say, a great performance last night, and it's between the Bears and the Jets. Where are you going?
Bears.
I thought you were going to say Chicago, to be honest.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to give me Chicago as your least desirable
It's
spot.
Bears. The Bears are in a very weird spot because that defense got built up in the Matt Eberflus image, and they have some good players, and they spent some big contracts, and that defense now is probably starting to come around the corner of, all right, some of our guys are going to start to get a little bit older, and we're going to start to get really expensive. So that defense might be 1 or 2 good more years if you can tidy it up quick. And then the offense was supposed to be there and isn't. So they're very disparate parts right now, the offense and the defense.
Great
so
point.
It's going to be hard to get good fast in Chicago. There's got to be some bad contract decisions, and you have to draft really well. So Chicago is tough. It's a little bit of a conundrum. Caleb Williams was the first overall pick for a reason. And he didn't have a great season, but still, like, there's a lot there. And so Chicago, I think, is more desirable than the Jets.
And somehow the Jaguars evade our venom on this Monday morning, keeping Trent Baalke, getting rid of Doug Peterson, but they're not the least desirable place to coach, according to Ben Solak or myself. Do you want to take a look at the wild card picture?
We can do it. Yeah, I'll see it.
Let's do it. Okay, let's start with the AFC. Okay, so Chargers, Texans, Steelers, Ravens, Sunday Broncos, Bills, Packers, Eagles, Sunday Commanders, Bucs, Monday night. Let's just take a look at the whole thing here. Rams hosting the Vikings. Give me the Ben Solak genius, sort of where your eye goes. What's popping out on the schedule?
Packers, Eagles, and Commanders, Buccaneers are both really interesting games. There's a lot of quarterback health uncertainty, right? Jordan Love leaves that Week 18 game against the Bears. Oh, he could have gone back in. Jalen Daniels leaves Week 18 against the Cowboys. Oh, he could have gone back in. Yeah, but he didn't. And so, we gotta check over the course of the week to make sure those guys are good. Jalen Hurts obviously still in the concussion protocol. So those games might get very tricky, but these are both Week 1 rematches, right? Bucs Commanders was a game where the Commanders defense wasn't ready yet. Bucs put a ton of points on him, and then Jaden was really strong in the second half. Now he gets Todd Bowles much later in his career, going to be able to see the blitzes a lot better, anticipate the rotations a lot better, and we know that Bucs secondary is eminently gettable. And so that's a big game for the Commanders as a heat check for a young team. And then Eagles-Packers was a close game in Brazil in Week 1. Both of those teams have evolved. Both of them have improved substantially. They play different ball than they used to, but there's the quarterback question. So those two games are I flip-flop already on who I'm picking out of those. Those are the hardest ones to figure out.
Commanders, Bucs got SNF?
Young Commanders. There's a lot of Commanders fans, right? They're big TV draws, and now you got Jaden Daniels, the rookie. I get it, yeah.
It's kind of surprising, though. Awesome seeing those two teams get that spot and shine on Sunday Night Football. I'm here for that. Do you want to talk Lions at all? Were you into? I'm sure you watched, kept you up all night. You drank some coffee. They have the 1 seed, dominated. We're going to get the Vikings side from our friend Jared Allen, future Hall of Famer. What did the Lions do to Sam Darnold?
There's a great clip of the old Michigan defense coordinator Don Brown screaming at his team in the film room, "Solve your problems with aggression." And it shows over the TV in the film room, he had the quote, "Solve your problems with aggression." Lions DC Aaron Glenn solved his problems with aggression, right? All right, we don't got a great cornerback room. We don't necessarily have the guys to cover the Vikings. We're just going to force the issue, right? This was raining hellfire for 4 quarters. They played man coverage on 67% of the snaps. They blitzed on 55% of Darnold's passing attempts. This was and the first time they played, we missed this in Week 7 because everybody loves Brian Flores and all the blitzing. The Lions blitzed Sam just as much in Week 7. When you blitz, it's going to be a high variance thing, right? Like the Vikings could have easily had a touchdown, put up 16 points, put up 23 points, but you're just trying to create some negative plays. Let's get some splashy stops. Let's flip the field and field position. Let's get those turnovers that you saw them get against the Niners and Brock Purdy. Aaron Glenn knows I don't have a perfect cover team right now. I just don't have the horses because of all these injuries. So I'm going to turn into the skid, and I'm going to be an aggressive pressure team. I'm going to force the issue at the quarterback position. Yeah, there's going to be open receivers, but if the guy can't hit him, the guy can't hit him. So I think Glenn is coached out of his mind this season. I've been so impressed.
Let's talk about these Rams. Now, the Vikings have to go on the road. They lose the 1 seed. Huge loss. Can't wait to dig into it. Like, I wonder if Jared Allen, like, if you could ask, I'll ask Jared whatever you want me to ask him. Like, I kind of want to know if I'm trying to think of the Vikings thing I want him to say. Like, is he going to walk me off of being worried about a 14-win team? Or is he going to say, yeah, they looked nervous AF? I'm so curious.
My thing is this. If this game had happened for the Vikings in Week 15, I think we would all be okay with it, right? We would all say, like, 100%. Oh, they had that bad game against the Lions, but, like, they're probably still very good. They're a 14-win team. Like, it's going to be okay. They can make a push. Because it happens in Week 18, Sunday Night Football, the last regular season game. It's our last memory, right? It's that availability bias. It's the last thing we saw. So we outsize it. It feels too big. Over the sample, the Vikings have played 17 good games out of 18 good games. That's probably a very good team, right?
But the argument against would be, yeah, those 14 wins were great, whatever, and they had a big win against the Packers, not like the week before, fine, a big game with stakes. But we have such a little sample size of Sam Darnold in these big games, and it's not great. And you can say what you want about the 14 games. If you're a great team, a contender wins the game yesterday.
Yeah, I do. You made the point when I was sitting in the pre-show where you said, Sam Darnold under the big lights, also Kevin O'Connell under the big lights. And I thought that was a very good point. O'Connell had a lot of opportunities second quarter of this game, early third quarter of this game. It's still a 4-point game, 1-point game, 8-point game to really get Sam into a rhythm, right? Okay, let's move away from the long drop backs.
Yeah, what was going on with the downfield stuff? Like, let's go underneath. Let's do what we do. I was so like, he was nervous. He was making Sam nervous. I was like, let's little catch and run anybody. Justin Jefferson, take it 80, go.
When I'm losing to my little brother in Madden, and it's frustrating, and I shouldn't be losing, I don't call slants, all right? I call verticals because I want to get it all back in one play, right? And that is the temptation that we get in these moments where Kevin O'Connell standing on the sideline, he knows the play calls, he knows the design.
Yeah.
He's seeing Justin Jefferson with space. He's seeing Jordan Addison with space. He's seeing TJ Hockenson barely missing the seam, and he's saying to himself, we are so close to connecting on this big one. We're going to break this thing wide open. We're going to punish Glenn. We just got to get it. And so you keep hitting, and you keep hitting, you keep hitting.
Yeah.
When in reality, feeling how shaky Sam was in the pocket, there were probably opportunities to run the ball a little bit more, establish a little bit more quick game, and get Sam into a rhythm. He hasn't had to get Sam into a rhythm much this season because they walk out in the first drive, and what do? They score a touchdown, right? They're so good on the opening script. They generate that lead, and now play action is working for you, and the movement series is working for you, the quarterback on the boot action. All of a sudden, they're trailing in a way that they're not super accustomed to trailing. Less than 25% of Sam Darnold's dropbacks this season before that game came with a win probability of less than 50%, according to NGS, right? They've largely been sun runners, and they got punched in the mouth a few times by Glenn. They didn't really know how to pick themselves up off the mat. That's something you need to learn how to do in the postseason, both for a head coach as a play caller and as a young quarterback.
And we'll see if they can learn that in a hurry, and it might be a good thing. They can make adjustments, watch the tape. I mean, Kevin's obviously brilliant, and see if they can adjust on the road against the Rams. The Broncos, they get the 7 seed, right, over the Chiefs. Denver back in the playoffs for the first time since Peyton Manning's Super Bowl in 50. Bo Nix was unbelievable. I don't care who they're playing, what they're playing, who's in here, who's out. What did you make of his dominant performance before the postseason kicks off?
Yeah, I did like at that one point when he was 18 for 18 for, what was it, 250 yards, 3 scores, and the last catch was the Devon Vele tip drill touchdown, right? We're like, all right, everyone's having a good day right now in Denver. Bo has improved so much over the course of the season. I've been very impressed. Broncos fans have a few screenshots of mine from October where I said Bo looked overwhelmed. He was cosplaying in the pocket, and they love those screenshots. I stand by it. That was what was happening in October, and Sean Payton has done a very nice job in, all right, figuring out what the rookie can and can't get away with, what he is and isn't comfortable. You've seen now just on the screen the touchdown behind line of scrimmage to Marvin Mims. They've incorporated such a big screen series and swing series to kind of just get him these quick passes. They've done a nice job bringing their rookie along. Now, Denver's good, and they're about to get deleted by the Bills. The Buffalo, they are outgunned, right? Denver this offseason needs to add wide receiver weapons behind Cortland Sutton. They probably need a true 3-down running back.
Devontae Adams.
Yeah. They are a young team, and this is going to be a very good playoff experience for them, but they're running into a preposterously good 2 seed in Buffalo. And so I'm happy for them. I like them. Arrows pointing up. I am very worried about the game that they're going to play against Buffalo.
I think they should bring in Devontae Adams.
I was I was looking at some of the veteran names, and the guy for me was Chris Godwin, because we're so smart with Marvin Mims usage, and we have these big Cortland Sutton plays. Yeah. I want a stick mover. I want a 3rd and 6, run a slant, run a curl from the guy.
Who is that in his 2007 offense though? Like that's what, or it's 2017. Who's the we got to find who's the right. I'm trying to think, like the Pierre Thomas. He just crafts everything around that. So what role would he play from that Saints
to me,
team?
Like Godwin is your big slot role, right? I go to the Marcus Colston idea, right? Which Colston was obviously
8 touchdowns 6'5", a year, 1,000.
Right?
Tons of catches.
But Godwin, Godwin's over 30, he's coming off a major injury, but he's probably going to hit the market because how well Jalen McMillan's playing for the Bucs. Yeah. And Godwin is he's steady, right? He's extremely reliable. He's a great blocker. Yeah. Like that's a guy you can give 85% of the snaps to, and that way you're not doing it for Devon Vele and Marvin Mims and some of these guys who are better in role positions. So I like Chris Godwin for them.
I think Adams sounds great, but you're saying Broncos at Bills Sunday, the 1 p.m.er on CBS. Broncos 8.5-point underdogs. You're saying bye Broncos, and see you next year. We're going to take a TV break. We're going to stay live on YouTube. I want to ask you a couple more questions. Jared Allen is rearing to go, guys. So we're going to take a short TV break on Up and Adams.